Michael Lindemann.
Oh, thank you, Linda.
Hello, this is Michael Lindemann.
Michael, good evening. I'm Art Bell, and this is a program called Area 2000. You're with a group called the 2020. Was it a foundation?
2020 Group is a private research organization, Art, and basically we're studying forces that shape the future. And that includes a wide variety of forces. But as a futurist over the last 4 years, I've looked a great deal at the UFO controversy and have come to the conclusion that it is perhaps one of the largest and certainly one of the least recognized forces that will impinge upon our future, that is causing the human future to evolve in an unexpected direction.
Wow, that's quite a conclusion.
Yep. No, I'm pretty firm on that.
What do you base that on?
Well, I base that on a great many things, Art, but if we go back to the question that Linda posed, I think that what we see in the ongoing policy of government secrecy is a premonition that the reality of an alien presence on planet Earth would have profound and largely unpredictable social consequences. I think it's the recognition of that likelihood, which is probably something they've thought about since at least the early 50s, if not earlier than that, that probably provokes the secrecy to this day. And what they're seeing today is that they can no longer contain the secret in the way they used to. The so-called UFO cover-up has actually evolved through several stages, and today we see basically that the containment policy of secrecy is completely breached. It's not working at all anymore. So instead we have a kind of a nuanced quasi-disclosure policy, which is actually very far from telling the truth. But it's a holding action. You might say it's a damage control operation today.
Where do you see quasi-disclosure? That was the term you used. Where is there that? In programs like mine? I'm speaking now of the government.
Well, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't think your program, I'm sure, is an effort to bring forward good, strong information as credibly as possible.
Well, yes, but we are part of the disclosure.
The disclosure apparatus.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that comes up, and I think it's something that troubles many good, solid ufologists. Linda Howe and I have discussed this. I've discussed it with other colleagues as well. Is are we giving comfort to the enemy? In effect, are we doing what they want us to do anyway? And in a certain sense, we may be. Because in a certain sense, we're creating a kind of a pillow for the general public to fall into. This is very alarming stuff we talk about here.
It certainly is. So then when you say quasi-disclosure, what exactly do you mean? Who is disclosing anything officially?
Well, it's very difficult to be certain of that, but I consider it a matter of rather considerable curiosity, for example, that after 31 years of dead silence, suddenly a great many Roswell people were willing to talk. I'm not saying there's any conspiracy around that, but it's very interesting to me.
No, it is true, and a lot more about Roswell is suddenly coming forward.
Right, and then there's the curious disclosure of MJ-12. Now, MJ-12 came out of nowhere. No one has yet claimed responsibility for it, and yet I would say the evidence is piling up that MJ-12 is actually a hoax, but it's a very important hoax, okay? I'm still open to the possibility that it's real, but frankly, it's about a 95% hoax there. And the idea that it would come forward in a way that is extremely difficult to penetrate, that no one would lay claim to it, and that despite the likelihood it's a hoax, it is so carefully constructed that it has all the appearance of a genuine document, that has a signature on it of disinformation, very high level. Someone is trying to perpetrate a conversation in our culture about this material. Someone wants to nuance or spin the public understanding of this information. And I think MJ-12 is a very good example of that.
Any other current examples that you'd cite? In other words, the pathway being prepared, that sort of thing?
Well, it's unclear, again, where or whether there's a plan. But one thing's for sure, the amount of alien imagery in our culture is skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. We see it in all different venues. We see it in the straight press. We see it on television, all kinds of specials, both fictional and documentary. We see it to a mind-boggling degree in advertising. There's in fact, a very strong undercurrent of abduction themes in everything from television sitcoms to advertising for all kinds of different products, whether you're talking about hamburgers, telephones, airplanes, or anything else. We're seeing this undercurrent of thematic material about abduction. This to me is absolutely extraordinary. I search my soul asking the question, is this really a strong hook for selling, hamburgers or Hondas? And I say to myself, I don't know about that, but I do know this. Today, and this is something that I show every single time I give a public talk, I throw up on the screen a cartoon. It's a Ziggy cartoon, that little kind of doughboy funny guy.
Sure. Okay,
Ziggy is driving along the street. It's after dark. There's a billboard, and on the billboard there is a flying saucer, very clear, a line drawing flying saucer, and under it a couple of lines come down that look like probably what you'd say a beam of light, and in the beam of light 5 or 6 little stick figures kind of floating upwards, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now that's a pretty clear symbol. You know what it means, I know what it means. Underneath it says 3 words, next 5 miles. Now check it out. I use that. I believe that is a Rorschach test of our culture, okay? I believe that is a symbolic test of a social experiment that has been wildly successful. You know why? Every single time I throw that up, I do it without a comment. I just put it on the screen. Well, of course, what happens is what you did. People crack up. And then I say to them, now check it out. Why do you get this joke? Why does this mean something?
Well, because our culture has been, as you point out, inundated with this kind of material.
Exactly. Now, what is the real consequence of this? The real consequence of it is that people have gotten so used to the idea that abduction is real that this extraordinarily bizarre abstraction in this cartoon doesn't faze them anymore. And that, to me, is a monumental event.
What does the 2020 group do in trying to predict the future? Do you look at social trends? What generally do you study, whatever the subject would be, UFOs or anything else? How do you approach trying to formulate what might be the future?
Well, of course, I use a wide variety of sources. I use research that is conducted by other people. I use news as it is reported in the straight press, both television and print. I use my own field work, and I, have to compare notes constantly with the work of other people. It really, futurism is an inexact science, and we don't predict the future. What we do is we look at trends and try to determine their strength, try to determine their direction, and we say, if we understand this trend, can we project its likely outcome?
So then, with regard to the UFOs and all of what you've been describing so far this morning, you would take this then to be a very strong trend.
Very strong trend. Yes.
Do you draw any conclusions? In other words, is this preparatory work? And if so, do you draw any conclusions about when?
No, I don't draw any conclusions about when. And I'll tell you why. Because as far as I can tell, there remains no political advantage at all to coming clean on this subject. I think that the whole process is being pushed primarily by the alien intelligence, which remains utterly inscrutable. We have no idea what these guys are up to. We don't know who they are, where they're from, or what they want. But I do think that if there is an acceleration underway, and I have a sense there is, but I can't prove that, the acceleration is being driven entirely by the aliens. The human side has been foot dragging as hard as ever. The problem is they're actually caught in a rock and hard place. And that is the fact that the aliens are here. And that's a big, huge political problem. But the hard place is that they've been lying about it for 45 years. Okay? Now, people are very tired of being reminded that the government's lying to them. It happens time and time again. I happen to think the lies that have been told about the UFO phenomenon do not, by and large, represent bad people doing something bad. I think these people were scared. I think they did what they thought they had to do. I think they formed very hard decisions around very hard information. I think it really freaked them out. But I also think today they're stuck with the very nasty fallout of their power.
What do you think the logic was as they sat around deciding that this information had to be kept from the public? What train of logic do you think they used in deciding that?
I believe there are at least 5 or 6 different reasons which all are kind of interlocking. Reason number one certainly was that in 1947, if not sooner, in fact, probably during World War II, when they had the Foo Fighter phenomenon, which was very strong, and then the ghost rockets over Scandinavia and other places right after the war, so especially in 1947, just after we had invented the atomic bomb, we had Joseph Stalin on the scene, we had new technologies such as rocket radar and so forth. I mean, we had entered a new era, and suddenly we got flying saucers literally littering the sky, but also littering the ground outside Roswell, New Mexico, and other places. And suddenly we've got a very real question. Are we being invaded from space? Militarily speaking, that was absolutely the question of the day.
Sure.
And military was on high alert. So, first of all, okay, here's the problem. Just defeated the worst, character in history. We just invented the atomic bomb. Do we need aliens? Not on your life. And if we've got aliens, is there anything we can do about them? Doesn't look like it. They're flying circles around everything we've got. Who are these guys? Where are they from? What do they want? Those three questions still bother us today, but they were really troubling back then. So that's problem number one. We got an invasion. Can't tell the people. What can we tell them? Yep, we're being invaded from space. Can't do a thing about it. Sorry. Very bad political problem there.
Yeah, I suppose.
Secondly, the second reason was that they thought that even if we didn't have aliens from space, what we did have was we had a vast proliferation of stories of flying saucers, and they were really worried that it would cause public panic and pandemonium no matter what. And so the CIA by 1952 was recommending to President Eisenhower that they institute a policy, official policy of debunking. And the reason was not that they thought the aliens were actually a national security risk. In fact, by 1952, they had actually lowered their estimation of the risk involved in the aliens themselves because the aliens were not showing overt hostility. But they did think that public interest in the subject was a terrible problem. And so they actually said, we've got to get people to stop thinking about this. And how they did it was a combination of denial and ridicule. Now, the third reason for secrecy, without a doubt, was they really thought they might have a secret weapon on their hands here. Now, if you, for example, if some very deep inside group knew that we had recovered alien wreckage from Roswell, I happen to think we did, many others do too, so some inside group knows about this, and they're looking at an alien spacecraft, they're looking at alien technology on board, and they think to themselves, wait a minute, isn't this what we want? Don't we want the ultimate edge? Is this the ultimate edge? Have we got something here that no one else has got, no one else can get for 1,000 years? Is this it? Is this the Pandora's box? And are we going to keep that secret? You bet your life. We're going to keep that secret.
Sure. So
I'm saying that there are a number of reasons. We could trot out a few more, but you get the picture?
I do, and I want to talk to you about the public panic aspect of it. Now, with what's been going on in modern society, people like you talking to people like our audience, has the public panic aspect of it, should there be a revelation about all this, has that changed? Would the public still panic? Is it well, in your view, that they would be told, or now, or should it be kept as deep and dark as ever?
I think we have to try our best to become more open to this possibility. I think the real danger is sudden revelation of something totally unexpected. People don't handle that well, never have.
All right, I asked just about every researcher this, and you sound like you'd be a good candidate. If you had incontrovertible evidence that you could go on television and trot out, and suddenly it would all be open, out in the open, would you do it?
It would depend on the nature of the evidence. If the evidence were the kind that had the overt appearance of something extremely hostile or extremely scary, I would have a lot of second thoughts about it, but I would want to move in the direction of revealing it as fast as possible. Knowing that I had the smoking gun in my hands, I would do everything in my power to bring people along fast to where they could actually grasp it at a later date. Now, if it were not very scary, very hostile kind of material, I would say, yes, let's bring it out. I would. And I think that there has been enough change, enough evolution of human awareness that we could probably get away with it. But whenever it happens, it's risky. I don't see any time in the foreseeable future when it wouldn't be risky, but it becomes increasingly untenable to stall for more time.
Risky for the American public, risky for the aliens, risky for our government that would be seen to be lying for many years, or risky to all of them?
Well, I cannot speak at all for the aliens position, but I can speak to the idea that the government that has tried so hard to keep this under wraps has always perceived grave political risk in saying anything really legitimate about this. I don't think those risks are substantially changed, although I think, as I said, with the containment of the secrecy absolutely breached, there's a lot of effort to bring people along. The risk is that people won't handle it well, or that it will precipitate unpredictable changes. This confronts so many of our basic belief structures. We don't know what alien technology will do to our science. We just don't know. We certainly don't know what revelations of alien activity on this planet are going to do to our religious structures, and I have a feeling it's going to do something pretty horrendous. Not necessarily bad, but in the short run, it's going to look like a lot of cherished belief systems are being assaulted by something, akin to...
Well, that would produce violence.
Could produce violence.
Would produce violence. I'm convinced of it. I speak with people on this program every week and on related subjects on other programs, and I'm telling you right now, if Jesus Christ came back, somebody would fill him full of lead. People wouldn't, or he'd be thrown into an insane asylum. And people just don't handle that kind of thing well, Michael. When you challenge their belief systems, the usual response is anger.
I agree with you. I think that right there, you put your finger on the risk, and that is why I say there is no time in the foreseeable future when we're going to be able to eliminate the risk, but we also cannot eliminate the fact that this is happening. And so what I feel we have to do is bring people along as fast as we can with the strongest, most credible, most balanced material we can find, and bring them along to where it will not be a huge surprise. Because sooner or later, this is going to be in our face. We don't have a choice about that. We're only stalling for time right now.
Well, my guest this morning, following you, Michael, is Don Berliner, who wrote Crash at Corona. So it should be an opportunity to look into what seemed to begin it all and is cited today as the best evidence, I suppose, that we're being visited. By the way, do you agree with that, with all the new information coming out about the crash in New Mexico? Is that about the best evidence?
Oh, whenever I give a talk, I tell my audiences that I feel it is basically fundamentally important that they pick up one or another of the major Roswell books, and there have been several good ones lately, including the one that Don and Stan Friedman wrote, and just learn the basic chronology. It is the most important single case we have. I think it's also important to recognize that it's not the only case, that there are many, many other strong corroborating cases. But Roswell sets the tone in so many ways because it has so many quality witnesses. It has all of the features, all of the claims for the basic UFO phenomena are there. The technology, the recovery, the bodies, the witnesses, and the cover-up, all in one huge, beautifully packaged picture. And if we had no other case but that case, we would have enough to build something pretty strong.
Fascinating. And fascinating getting all this from your perspective as somebody who looks at trends and toward the future. And you see all of this increasing toward what, Michael? Toward a revelation? Eventually, and how do you picture it coming? Will somebody come out, will the President of the United States trot out with a big primetime evening news address and tell the American people the truth suddenly, or how do you think it might occur?
Well, as I think I've already tried to intimate, I don't really think there's any political advantage in just trotting out the truth. I think that remains.
Well, the government usually trots out the truth when they have to. In other words, when somebody else is about to reveal something or it's going to break in the Washington Post or who knows what, they try to get out ahead of it.
Well, indeed, and I think they've, as I say, in some instances, with MJ-12 as a striking example, they have been trotting out pieces of quasi-truth. The problem is this is a very complicated subject at best. It's highly ambiguous. They can trot out a lot of stuff that ain't true, but that looks pretty interesting. And so it's going to be difficult for anyone to know precisely when they're hearing the truth.
Well, that's it. Short of, say, the president announcing something, Don, I've thought about this many times. If you consider the Kennedy assassination,
right,
which has a million theories, just like the UFO business does, if Don Berliner or anybody else came out with yet another, you would purport it to be the truth, and you would have a film, and you would have trajectories showing how the bullet went and all the rest of it. It would be, Don, when all was said and done, still just one more theory thrown onto the pile. And even if it were the absolute truth, it would be lost in the shuffle.
It could be lost in the shuffle, that is correct. Obviously, if it came from the lips of the President or the Secretary of Defense or somebody like that,
different
it would bring all kinds of additional weight. But I think what we have right now is a growing national conversation that's on and off. Your show as an example, and alongside your show, literally hundreds, maybe thousands of other venues that are cropping up around the country, mostly in local markets, that are bringing out this material. We've got more credible research being put out in print and in television work than ever before, by far. And so what we see here is a sort of a building momentum of information which helps the entire situation along. I think I have a personal concern that people need to be brought into this gently, because none of us handle this kind of surprise very well. You've made that point yourself, and you're absolutely right. So again, we can't just pitch it to them and expect them to take it lying down. It's not going to happen that way. But bringing them along is very important.
All right, Don, we're woefully short on time here, running over, but you would make a really good guest, and I would like to suggest to Angela Thompson that she contact you at the from the foundation and perhaps think of you as a guest. You'd make a good full evening guest.
Well, thank you very much. I'd be very happy to do that.
All right, Michael, we've got to scoot, and you may want to put Linda on one more time, but please, let's follow up on that. I'd like to have you as a guest.
All right, I will see to it that we get that information to you. And here's Linda.
All right, thank you, Michael Lindemann.
Right.
Hi, Linda. Boy, he'd make a great guest.
Well, I think so too. I've always thought that. Michael and I have had long and complex discussions for the last 4 years on a lot of these issues. And next Sunday, I believe, I'm on the docket for you to lob questions to me about some of these facts and eyewitnesses that are global and are supporting the at least circumstantial evidence that something else is involved with our planet. And I think this current interview that you've just done with Michael Lindemann underscores the difficulty that the government has in getting this out, and that some of us who are writing and producing television shows may, in the long run, be the people who are helping them tell the story that they can't tell easily.
Okay, Linda, I will look forward to speaking with you, as everybody else will, next week as a guest. And I want to thank you for being here this morning and bringing Michael Lindemann. He was really fascinating.
Right. Well, thanks,